Fake mugshots, knocked off millions, and a horrifying body count. You caught the dramatic doc, but did you get the full story? Reckless boozehound to murder for hire, here's what Netflix left out. The Netflix documentary Murdaugh Murders: A Southern Scandal devotes itself to the 2019 boat crash that killed Mallory Beach. Three couples, Anthony Cook and Mallory Beach, Connor Cook and Millie Altman, and Morgan Doty and Paul Murdaugh went out on the Murdaugh family boat to a party. They started heading back home around midnight, but despite Paul being highly intoxicated, he wouldn't let anyone else drive. Episode 2 opens just hours after the crash as rescuers frantically search for Mallory. The other passengers, except for Mallory's boyfriend Anthony, who remained at the scene, were rushed to the hospital. There, while placed in restraints, Paul's blood alcohol level was confirmed to be over 3 times the legal limit. Morgan's mom Diane claimed a nurse warned her,
"I'm not supposed to say this to you, but Paul, he's a nasty drunk, and you need to get away from him as fast as you can."
But what wasn't mentioned was how Paul was apparently laughing and hitting on the nurses. According to the HBO docuseries Low Country: The Murdaugh Dynasty, Paul's behavior in the hospital was shocking. He appeared unfazed by the tragedy and was seemingly unconcerned about his missing friend and the consequences that awaited him. The Netflix doc details the many ways in which Alec Murdaugh reportedly tried to get his son's friend Connor to be named as the driver of the boat, rather than Paul. This ranges from instructing the kids not to answer questions and say they don't know who's driving the boat, to claiming to legally represent them all, to even contacting Connor's parents.
And so that night, I'm worried about finding my child, and they're worried about how they're gonna cover up Paul driving.
What the series doesn't mention is that Alec is said to have recommended attorney Corey Fleming for Connor and his family. But Corey Fleming is a good friend and former college roommate of Alec's, a connection that the Cook family was unaware of. It would surely be a conflict of interest for someone closely tied to the Murdaughs to represent the person Alec wanted to take the blame. Fleming would later be indicted as a co-conspirator in Alec's many financial crimes.
He already had the plan in motion, and we fell for it.
It was 2 months after the death of Mallory Beach when Paul Murdaugh was charged with 3 felonies. 1 count of driving a water vehicle under the influence resulting in death, and 2 counts of boating under the influence resulting in great bodily injury. But while the Netflix doc provides evidence of various parties questioning why Paul hadn't been booked into jail yet, it doesn't make clear that this actually never happened. Even after Paul's indictment, it took an additional month before the charges were brought up. There are statements from his friend's parents about how he was never handcuffed. Mallory's mother even recounts how his mugshot was taken of him in a nice shirt. And while all of that is true, it's shocking to discover that Paul never even set foot in the police station. He was never booked at all. And that mugshot, it was taken against a wall outside the courtroom. Another way Paul was apparently given what's referred to as the, quote, gentleman's treatment is that the judge who set his bond denied the prosecution's request for Paul to wear an alcohol monitor. Given that Paul was charged with 3 felonies committed while under the influence, this was seen by many as gross neglect of duty. It was even brought up on Twitter using the hashtag South's good old boy system.
He never went behind bars, he never had handcuffs, never wore the orange suit.
Not only did Paul get sent home to wait indefinitely for a criminal trial, but he reportedly continued to drink and party like nothing ever happened. Paul's former girlfriend, Morgan, says she saw Snapchat stories and other social media posts of people still partying with Paul. A monitor, which the Netflix series never addresses, would have at the very least ensured that this underage teen was not continuing to abuse alcohol illegally. It's not until episode 2 of the Netflix series that the main events are discussed in detail. This show provides the audio of the 911 call Alec made, as well as Alec's timeline of his movements that night, but it leaves out significant details. Reported problems in the Murdaughs' marriage are noted, as are the rumors that Maggie had hired a forensic accountant and maybe even met with a divorce attorney. But the episode doesn't reveal that Maggie wasn't living at the Moselle house at the time. Instead, she had been staying at their beach house in Edisto, far from Alec. So why was she at Moselle? The HBO doc Low Country explains that Maggie had been living at the beach house, but that on June 7th, Alec texted her asking to meet up. She apparently even discussed the worrying texts with her sister, saying Alec was, quote, up to something. At the trial, Maggie's sister testified that Alec's father was hospitalized and that Alec claimed his dad needed Maggie's support. After hearing this, she agreed to meet him at the Moselle house. She was killed that night. Netflix covers how the survivors of the 2019 boat crash were each asked to provide an alibi for the night of the murder and how they were all cleared of suspicion. But even so, the crash was continually linked to the murders by many different sources.
I think this may very well be related to the death of Mallory Beach. What was the motivation other than anger or revenge?
But in the 2020 episode, Murdaugh Family Murders, it becomes clear why people initially assumed that these two events would be related. Alec. There's extensive footage from Alec at the murder scene in which he frequently mentions the boat crash and claims it's the reason his wife and son are dead. The episode also shows the very first interview Alec gave to state law enforcement. He again brings up the crash in connection with the murders, saying that Paul had been threatened and targeted. Then, when Alec took the stand on February 23, 2021, his attorney played the 911 call, in which Alec named the threats regarding the crash as the motive. Appearing to dictate the narrative, he laments,
Didn't know.
According to the Netflix doc, 2 weeks into investigating the murders of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh, state law enforcement reopened the case of Stephen Smith's death. Killed in 2015, 19-year-old Smith was found lying in the middle of a road with head injuries, while Alec's oldest son, Buster Murdaugh, was mentioned in connection with the case, never led anywhere. Stephen's death was labeled a hit and run, and the case was closed.
This is not a wreck. This is a murder.
But what the HBO doc reveals is that the only reason the coroner called it a hit and run is because Smith's body was found in the road. State police are said to have found the death suspicious for various reasons: the complete lack of glass or debris at the crime scene, the odd position of the body, and the lack of injury anywhere else on his person. The Netflix show fails to mention that the coroner seemingly ignored all this evidence. Yes, there's an indication that the investigation was rushed or covered up on behalf of the Murdaughs, but the HBO version actually backs this up with a statement from Stephen Smith's mother. Sandy Smith said that the morning Stephen's body was found, Alec's oldest brother offered to represent the family.
And then before the sheriff came in, Randy Murdaugh was calling.
On September 4th, 2021, 3 months after the murders of Maggie and Paul, Alec Murdaugh called 911 again. This time, he said he'd been shot in the head by an unknown man who stopped to help him change his tire. The Netflix miniseries addresses the particulars of this case, but it leaves out some crucial information. Alec's injury is listed in the police report as a superficial gunshot wound to the head, which would seem to corroborate Alec's story. But a guest on 2020 said that the medical report revealed the wounds weren't from a gunshot at all. Instead, they were likely due to a fall. Another item left out of the Netflix series is how there were 10 shell casings found at the scene, which didn't add up to Alec's story at all. It was soon revealed that Alec had asked his cousin, Curtis Eddie Smith, to shoot him. Smith confirmed to 2020 that the request was made, but that he never hurt Alec.
He said, I need you to kill me. I said, yeah, that ain't happening. And I figured I was going to try to scare some sense into him. And I shot the gun up in the air.
On September 6th, 2021, Alec Murdaugh announced that he was resigning from his law firm and entering rehab. He would later reveal an opioid addiction, but the firm swiftly contradicted this story. The law firm was founded in 1910 by Randolph Murdaugh Sr., Alec's great-grandfather. Netflix mentions the trip to rehab briefly, but 2020 goes into much more detail.
If anyone wants to see the face of what opioid addiction does, you're looking at it.
Mere hours after Alec's statement about entering rehab, the firm released its own statement saying that Murdaugh didn't resign as he claims. Instead, he was asked to leave on September 3rd, the day before his bizarre roadside shooting, because he had misappropriated funds from clients and the firm alike. According to 2020, Alec was briefly removed from rehab to be charged in the shooting hoax. He was then charged with the theft of the Satterfield settlement. The day Alec left rehab, he was charged with the murders of his wife and son. What the Netflix doc doesn't get into is just how many financial crimes Alec Murdaugh has been accused of. The memo from the law firm stating he had been misappropriating funds opened the door to dozens of incidents where Alec defrauded his clients or embezzled money from his firm. All in, it totaled millions of dollars. A whopping 99 charges have been filed related to these findings, but the crimes also seemingly provide a motive for the deaths of Paul and Maggie. Paul's boating accident in 2019 had yet to go to trial, but a civil case against him on behalf of the Beach family was progressing. A hearing was scheduled for June 10th, just 3 days after Paul and Maggie were murdered. That hearing was to request an accounting of the family's financial records, which Alec presumably didn't want to release. Beach family attorney Mark Tinsley told 2020 that after the murders, the hearing was indefinitely canceled, and if Maggie was also filing for divorce, then Alec's finances would have been scrutinized in that scenario as well. One of the most egregious of Alec Murdaugh's financial crimes is the one perpetrated against the family of his former housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield. The Netflix series covers Satterfield's long relationship with the Murdaughs, as well as her death in 2018. Satterfield reportedly fell and hit her head on brick steps at the house, but the inconsistency in the accounting of the incident was troubling. Alec claimed to be at the scene, talking to Gloria, claiming she told him the dogs tripped her. But during the 911 call, Paul and Maggie's voices are evident, but Alec's is not. Witness statements also reveal that Alec wasn't there at the time of the fall and that Gloria never regained consciousness.
He said, I want to make sure the boys are taken care of.
The Netflix doc also touches on the plan Alec devised to sue himself in order to collect from the insurance company for Gloria's sons, and his ultimate betrayal in taking the entire $4.3 million for himself. But what it leaves out is the ending to this tragic tale, possibly because filming had wrapped. Thankfully, the Satterfield sons were awarded over $7.5 million in settlements from Murdaugh and his co-conspirators. Netflix had their series in the can before the trial of Alec Murdaugh began, and some damning evidence from the courtroom is missing from the doc. As noted by 2020, one of the most powerful exhibits shown to the jury was a timeline. The prosecution's report included GPS data, steps data, and second-by-second records of all calls and texts between the parties. Alec placed his 911 call just 19 seconds after he arrived at the dog kennels. As the prosecution pointed out, this wouldn't have been enough time to check the pulses of his wife and son, whose bodies were 30 feet apart, before he called for help as he initially claimed. Other evidence came from Paul Murdaugh's phone. One video showed Alec in different clothes than he was wearing when police arrived. And in a second video Paul had taken of a dog at the kennels just minutes before his death, Maggie and Alec can be heard talking in the background, voiding Alec's alibi.
The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Indictment for murder. Verdict, guilty.
Jurors needed only 45 minutes to convict Alec Murdaugh on both counts. The next day, he was sentenced to 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole.